So, you know, these are difficult times. It's a rough day on me. Sometimes things don't always go according to plan. So, how you going to get by with this? Well, got my cracker here. Pretend it. Oh, oh no! I dropped it on the floor. I only got that much left now. I'm gonna get my steak knife out here because I was thinking maybe Jim and I were gonna get steaks today, but we're gonna probably eat that. Well, oh, let's get that in there. Okay. 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 We got it now. All right. Oh, that's so good. How do you get by these difficult times? Well, I go to the garage. That's right. I go to the garage and I just pretend that I'm with the real deal.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Groundhog's Garage. My name is Jim. As a follow-up to my last project with the spark plug and the coil and everything fixing the miss, and it still works perfectly, I'm going to check the brakes now. I don't know what the condition is. It stops. There's no squeaking or anything. But I want to see if it needs pads or rotors, or just about needs pads and rotors, because I think I'm just going to flip this thing, and I want to make sure that it works in reasonably working condition. I might put a seat cover on this before not too long, and just some other cosmetic things. The front passenger side fender has a dent in it, so we're going to fix some of those things, and we're going to get started right now. Nothing's ever easy up north. The wheel is corroded to the hub, so I've got the lug nuts backed out, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to go drive it around the block. It'll be enough to loosen it up, and hopefully rub some of that corrosion off. That wheel will pop right off. I'm going to drive slowly. Alright, we got it loose. You can see the little seam there. And if you do this, do it wisely. You don't have to go real fast. You're talking about a 6,000 pound vehicle, and with the side weight, that'll come off really easy. And don't forget that you loosen the bolts. And this is in no way, shape, or means advice from me. This is just what I did to loosen my wheels from the hub. I don't know how much you can see in there, but the pad on the outboard side is just about gone. The inboard side has maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I guess we'll check the fronts real quick. The rotors look good. They're not scored or anything. There's no rib up here, so I think I'm going to reuse those. But definitely need new pads for the back. I found a treasure working on the car. A 13mm snap-on. Can you see it? Let's see. 13mm snap-on socket. I love finding treasure. Okay, upon inspection, the rotors are kind of janky. They got a lot of this stuff. And if it's like that on the outside, it's probably even worse on the inside. And initially, I thought the pads looked good. They're nice and thick. But if you look on the outboard one, there it is. See the crack in the pad. So we'll be getting some new pads too. There we go. Nice good shot of it. So we'll be getting some new pads too. So rotors and pads for the front and pads for the rear. Okay, we'll be stopping at Summit Racing tomorrow. Get pads all the way around and rotors for the front, and then we'll bleed the lines, put some fresh brake fluid in it, and that should take care of the brakes. Right now there's no problem with them, but clearly they need some service, so we'll get that started tomorrow. Well, it's 8 o'clock. It's drizzling a little bit. It's going to get dark here pretty soon. I want to be on the couch watching Blacklist, but I need to get out here and do something. So I got the parts for the brakes on my Sequoia. I'm going to yank the right rear wheel off and put the pads on, and at least get one wheel out of the way. So what tools do you need to do a back brake job on a 2001 Toyota Sequoia? Well, you need a 21mm to get the lug nuts off. You need a 17mm to get the bracket bolts off. You need a 17mm to get the caliper off, which is kind of convenient that they're all the same size. You need something to press the piston back into the caliper, and impact guns help, and maybe a screwdriver to help pry the pads apart away from the rotor, so it makes it a little easier to move it away. So you don't need a whole lot of tools. A strength of Toyota over GM is that they don't have like 8 different sizes of bolts. So there you go. Not a whole lot. 10 millimeter for the bleeder screw if you want to back it out and do it like I did. Just when you're depressing the piston, you squeeze out the brake fluid. That would be in my opinion, that should be the preferred method, just so you get some fresher brake fluid in there. Your calipers will thank you. They'll last longer. So 99.9% of my mechanical experience is with GM vehicles. And this looks very similar to a GM setup with the separate bracket and a caliper. So I'm going to loosen these bolts, and which are for the pins. Clean those up if I have to. Take the pads out, bleed the brake a little bit, and we'll get the new pads in and put this thing back together. So to give myself some room to get these calipers off, I've just stuck my screwdriver in here. I got the bleeder open, and I'll just pry the piston back in the caliper about as far as I can get it with the screwdriver. It'll save me a little bit of compressing it in there, and the caliper will come right off. I think that's good enough. I'm going to tighten that back up so no air gets in there, and then I'll take the caliper off. Let's pop this one off here so you can see the how close it was. If I can get it out. She's stuck in there. Oh yeah, that was close. And the pins, top pin was good. The bottom pin was stuck, so I had to like hammer it out that way. But we will clean the pin up and we'll get that fixed. So it's not as bad, but that rust jacked, and it looks like a little wear right there. So definitely needed replaced. Did I show you guys the 13 millimeter snap-on socket I found in my engine bay? How about that? Okay, it looks like I didn't have to take the bracket off. GM, their clip goes all the way across, it's connected, and if that had been the case here, I'd have never got these off, but they're individuals. So, it's a little rusty. There we go. So they're single pieces, so, but the bracket needs cleaned up a little bit, so I'll knock some of that rust off and we'll get it back together here. Alright, we got that on there. Let's loosen this bleeder screw up. Can you see that? And cleaning out a little rust out of that boot. There we go. Okay, I got some caliper grease on the pins. There's the other one. Got to straighten out those boots. There we go. Work the pins in. Oh, they're going to glide nice. And we are ready to go. I don't think you need to stick around and watch me put the wheel on, but the guides are greased, both sides, hopefully to keep it from rusting on the back side. Pins are greased, new pads. You can see the rotor's in pretty good shape anyway. And I just got to remember to pump the brakes before I drive anywhere. So I want to show you something that's kind of interesting. I'm working on the back brake on the driver's side. Now when I did the passenger side last night, I took the pads out and this is what they look like. And as you can see, they are wafer thin. And when I do this with every brake job, if I'm not bleeding the entire brake system, I'm at least opening up cracking the bleeder screw and compressing the piston and whatever fluid's in there, letting it out, and then closing the bleeder screw and then pumping it back up so it gets some fresh fluid in there. If for no other reason, sometimes you get air in the caliper. So doing the driver's side today, when I cracked the bleeder screw and I started compressing the piston, it came out bubbly, almost like, not quite like foam, but there was a lot of air in it. And look how much more pad is on the driver's side. And it's all because there's air in the caliper and it can't press as hard on your brake pads as if there's all fluid in there. So for no other reason than this, you should crack that bleeder screw and then compress your piston. I know some guys even compress the piston, you know, and it pushes the fluid back up into the master cylinder, and there's, you know, some people say you're ruining your master cylinder and some people say it's okay. I don't care. But if there's air in your caliper, you are not getting proper brake action, and clearly one side of the caliper was doing more work than the other. So just a little pro tip. Alright, I got the front tire off and we are on the driver's side. Now this is where Toyota differs from GM quite significantly. These are like drop-in pads. You take these clips off and you can, if you just wanted to replace the pads, you could just pull them out and drop them back in. But because I'm replacing the rotor, I got to take the caliper off. So I'm going to video more of this. But to get these out, you take this clip off, and then you can pull these pins, and I think that should release the brake pad. So now this wire goes into, there's a little hole on the end of the pin here that these go into, and it's not in this one. But yeah, normally that's where they are. Just like that. Put it somewhere where I won't lose it. Although I think some of that comes with the new and get a pair of pliers to pull that out. And they look like they're 4-piston calipers, which is nice. So I'm going to crack this bleeder screw and just do a repeat of what I did with the other ones. Maybe. Let's tighten that up until we're ready to compress the pistons. And come on out of there. There we go. There's still a lot of pad left on here, but I got new ones. See, this one's got a crack in it too. See it right here? So, garbage. These are probably a little harder to see, but they're cracked in the same place, right at the seam there, and on this side too. That was a lot of work. Is that how hard those are to get out? I've watched plenty of YouTube videos, and that doesn't seem like that's right. I'm going to guess 17 millimeter because everything else is 17 millimeter. Yep. These have been off before. That other one had some anti-seize on it. 13 millimeter. Alright, I'm going to take a little die grinder and just clean up the rust where the calipers slide on all four sides with a little sandpaper. It's not a carbide bit or anything like that. It's just going to clean it up some because clearly the pads weren't sliding the way they should, and I don't want to put new ones in there and just have the same problem. Those pads should be at least somewhat free in there to move around a little bit. And in the interest of your ears, I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, I cleaned the rust up a little bit where the pads would rest, where the steel plate would rest against the caliper. And this is more of what I would expect. Let me set this in here. And now look how easily that moves back and forth. That's how it should work. So cleaning up the rust was the hot ticket. And I'll make sure to grease up these pads real well before I stick the new pads on. And both sides work the same. I don't want to drop this because of the hard line, but yeah, that's how it should work. So you know, when your pads don't slide back and forth this way easily, they're just going to sit there and rest against your caliper, or your rotor, I'm sorry, and that's probably what caused the cracking. They just got hot and start delaminating. So don't let that happen. This is the first rotor in a long time that I had to take some heat to get it off. When you're doing these, put something on the hub. Anti-seize, wool wax, fluid film, all that stuff works great. Anything. You should never have to wail on a rotor to get it off. I haven't had to use a sledgehammer, and it's funny, I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning. We were talking about a brake job we did on his car. We had to take a sledgehammer to it. It was an old Ford, or was it a Mercury? Ford Focus. I forget. We had to take a sledgehammer to it to get the rotor off, and busted it into 3 or 4 places before the hub finally let go. So put some anti-seize on there. It's cheap. Anything. So I coated it with anti-seize, and you know how long it'll take for that hub to weld itself to the rotor? I don't either, because it's never happened. Okay, you saw how hard those brake pads came out. Now you're going to see how easy they go in. Look at that, they just slide in there. And that's how it's supposed to be. So if you're struggling putting them back in, you've got to either clean the caliper or do something on the side of the pads. They should not be that tight. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and button this up, and then when we get done I'll have a few final thoughts, and I'll go over a little review of everything I did. Okay, I've got the clip in, and the pin is through, or the wire is through the pinhole like it should be on both the top and the bottom. I got the clip in. I'm assuming that's an anti-noise thing, whatever it is, and I think I'm going to put the wheel on. So I'm all hot and steamy. Hey, if you haven't clicked on subscribe, and hey, any tips you can hand me about doing a Toyota Sequoia, what I should be looking for, things like that, I'd appreciate it. Put your comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Alright, have a great night. Bye bye. On my Sequoia project again, and if you work on your own stuff, you know how this goes. You fuss with it, it breaks. So I finished my brake job yesterday, and the front left caliper is frozen. I got out of the truck after test driving it, and it was baking. So I got my infrared, hold on a second, I'll show you. I got my infrared thermometer out and spec'd the rotor, and it was like 260 degrees, and I went over to the passenger side and it was 120. And plus I could smell it burning. So I just called Napa. They've got the caliper. I'm going to yank the one off the truck, and we're going to head over there and pick up the caliper and finish this thing off. Okay, I have the old caliper out, and it's this side over here that looks like it wouldn't recede any further, so the cups aren't going all the way in. And that was with some pretty intense pressure the other day. So this is a bad caliper. I got it out. I'm going to run it over to Napa. $111 for a core. It's insane. Gonna take it over to Napa. They're not a sponsor, and we'll get this replaced and run a few other errands, and we'll get this fixed up.
A few minutes later.
$111 credit for that core. That's incredible. Makes me want to go out and rob calipers off at Toyota Sequoias. Alright, I got the new caliper. There we go. We'll put that in. We will connect the brake line and pump a little fluid through it and take it for a test drive. And I don't think I need to show you again how to put the caliper on, so I will be back with you once I get it all put back together. All right, all right, all right. I got the caliper in. I've got the brake bled, and I'm going to put the tire on and take her for a little test drive. It should be good now.